Mr. Pepe, and good afternoon, friends. Today, my group and I are going to present a video about Holland and Netherlands in general. We are going to talk about many aspects during the imperialism. The members of my group are Alessandra Salazar, Sebastián Núñez, and me, Luis Felipe Pacheco. We want you to enjoy our video. Thanks. In this video, we want you to understand what role developed the Dutch Empire in the imperialism. So, we are going to talk about Holland in the imperialism. The structure of our video is going to be the introduction, then the Dutch Empire before the imperialism or the antecedents, then the Dutch during the imperialism, and finally the Dutch decay. In the last part of the video, we are going to put our conclusions. My name is Luis Felipe Pacheco and I'm going to introduce the video. The Dutch Empire is a name given to the various territories controlled by the Netherlands from the 17th century to the 20th century. The Netherlands reigned supreme during much of the 17th century, which is known as the Dutch Golden Age. Holland has saw the economic increase in their surroundings, such as Spain, so they decided to establish colonies, and with the help of their outstanding skills in shipping and trading and their search of nationalism and militarism, they got the third place of European countries that had more established colonies outside Europe, after Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal and Britain go to Africa to conquer some territories, so they did the same and they got many benefits for that.
In 1927, the Dutch were given the territory of Indonesia in exchange for helping them fighting some rebel uprising. Eventually, they came of control of all the ports in Indonesian country, and by the late 70s they dominated trade. The Dutch forced the Indonesians to produce certain crops and then deliver them at the prices set by the Dutch. This made the Indonesians very unhappy and spread nationalism in Indonesia. Rebellions began to take place and continued until 1835, when they were finally stopped by the Dutch. Finally, in 1942, Indonesia was given to Japan because of the Second World War.
Dutch imperialism. Unlike the other European powers that put their attention on conquering new territories in Africa and Asia, the Dutch only put their attention on maintaining their colonies in the West and East Indies. That was only until 1873. In that year, the Dutch decided to declare the war on an archipelago of Indonesia. It was called the Aceh War, which was the name of the archipelago. The intention of the Dutch by declaring it was to take control over it. And why do they wanted to do this? Well, the reason is simple. In that time, the Dutch were the main sea power of Europe, so Aceh was not only seen as a threat, but a strength to hold because of its ideal geographical position, which you see was all surrounded by ocean. You see that when Holland people discovered all the benefits that they would obtain by conquering this archipelago, they didn't joke in doing their best in trying to conquer it. The result was predictable: a Dutch victory.
1990 and 1902, it was a time of much competition between the old colonial main powers and the new powers such as Japan and United States. Holland was considered as an old colonial power. They expanded a little bit their territory by conquering the archipelago of Archeg.
From 1880 to 1902, the Dutch did not pursue expansion like other great powers of Europe did, like Great Britain and France. They focused on not dividing up Africa, but on maintaining assets at the East Indies. Three parties were formed: the Christian Party, the Conservative Party, and the Radical Party. The Christian hoped to offer warranship to the East Indies and unite all the islands under the Dutch flag. But The Radical Party and Conservative Party took more radical and conservative approach to the situation.
The Dutch did not focus on colonizing South Africa because they knew that there were already many European powers over there and they thought they couldn't fight against them. There were some settlers called Boers who were from the Netherlands, Holland, living there. These people named Boers, before they wanted to settle over there, they knew they had to fight over the British rule, so they got prepared. The Boers fought against the British, and they finally even overthrew British rule from there and gained support from Dutch political parties. This victory wasn't only important because Boers gained control over South Africa, but also that it stimulated Dutch nationalism. As a result of the Boers' victory, South Africa turned from this to this. Territories that Holland had during the beginning of the 19th century were Belgium and Luxembourg.
I'm going to talk about the Dutch decay. By 1900, problems appeared in the whole Netherlands, including Holland. The imperialism became a big debate in Holland. The reason? The conflict was a moral and ethical fairness in the colonization of Holland. Besides Indonesia, which was lost to Japan in 1942, Holland kept much colonies until 1962, when they ceded much colonies such as New Guinea, Suriname, etc.
During a period of imperialism where European countries were in constant conflicts for having power over territories, Dutch people were a complete strange case. This was because they preferred to maintain powers over the territories that they already had. Obviously, an exception to this was the Dutch War, where they put all the energy in conquering the region of the same name. However, it wasn't a bad decision because, as we already mentioned, they were the main sea power of Europe for many years.
Holland as a country didn't conquer that much as other global powers, such as Britain and France, at that time, the time of the imperialism. They tried to conquer Africa, and they could, but in a little amount, because countries such as Britain and France had many conquered parts of Africa, so the territories for Holland were minimal. So Holland as a country took a good decision. They took care about the colonies they had conquered before the imperialism, instead of conquering more. The bad part is that many powerful countries stole their colonies, for example, Indonesia. The foreign countries took as an advantage the Dutch decay to conquer the colonies that Holland took instead.
In conclusion, Holland started imperialism era with Indonesia, Sumatra, Java, Borneo, New Guinea, the famous and Moluccas Islands, the Netherlands, Antilles, and Guyana in American territory. But at the end of this era, there was nothing left from the Netherlands Empire. Japan took Indonesia, and Britain took all of the global and commercial empire that has